Yeah. All right. So pleasant evening, everyone. I hope that we have Shahira Ali back on with us shortly. Not too sure why she was bumped off, but I do hope she was in for quite some time. I'm not sure why the challenges exist. However, we are here and we wanna spend some time this evening really looking at autism. For the viewers that would know ProSIVAN, the acronym really stands for Protect Children Against Violence, Abuse, Neglect, and Exploitation. And so, in our duty or in our task to raise awareness of the different issues affecting children, um, we also have vulnerable groups. And so, among these groups, we have people or children who live and deal with the issues of autism. And so it actually has been a very interesting experience hearing and learning from Shahira and Kashmeera in terms of autism and the realities that exist in Trinidad and Tobago. And so tonight it will be quite an interesting conversation that we hope to have um, on the issue or on the topic of autism. So thus far we have one of our guests in, and we want to ask Kashmira to do a little introduction of yourself and just kind of share with us a little bit in terms of how you got involved with autism.
Hi everyone, good night. Um, so Shahira and I have been, she's one of my closest friends since primary school, since first year. And I have witnessed firsthand, the type of bullying and harassment she got growing up. And it was always something that kind of baffled me. And people used to call her retarded and special and all of these things. And it was only in secondary school when she got diagnosed with autism, then we realized that what it was. And I have seen her trying to, explain to people that she's autistic and she's different from people and she can't really control the way she is. And people could really be oblivious if she gets me. Okay. And I realized that she wasn't in a position to kind of defend herself. So that's why I started the group Autistically Blessed to kind of help raise awareness on what autism is and to try to help other people like Shahira and try to, make their experiences less tragic.
Okay, so you stated that you would have started a group to help people understand autism. So permit me to ask, is autism a disability?
Well, autism is termed a long-term developmental disability,
Right.
but to me, I wouldn't consider autistic people disabled. The only difference between them and a regular person is that their brain is structured differently.
Okay. Um, but then help us to understand then what autism is.
It's a developmental disorder that associates with the symptoms of persistent deficits in like social communications and interactions and restricted repetitive behaviors, interests, and activities. So basically, people with autism have difficulty in having like regular back and forth conversations and difficulty in initiating or responding to conversations. They also have like abnormal eye contact and body language, and they could sometimes have like a lack of facial expression. and they also have trouble in maintaining relationships. So that's why sometimes they might have trouble making friends and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. That's, I mean, generally, I don't think that we focus on what challenges people with autism. You would have outlined several things, challenges with eye contact, facial expression. I mean, these are things that an ordinary person or a person that does not have autism would be able to do every day. It would be as a normal function. However, you are indicating to us that persons with autism have a challenge with these simple things.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. So let me ask. Um,
Hey, do you just give me 1 minute? My laptop gonna die.
okay, sure. Yeah, so as we continue, I mean, for me, this is learning, and having been involved, or well, we just had one briefing with these two persons earlier on in the week, and so I have actually been exposed to so much in terms of autism over these last couple of days. Um, Generally, in Trinidad and Tobago, we kind of shun persons um, that we see as being different. Persons that we might that would be autistic, um, and so rather than see how we could help or how we could assist or try to understand their different abilities. And as we get in, we would kind of understand why I would refer to it as different abilities. We try to shun them, or we make fun of them, and we laugh at them rather than understanding that they simply have different levels of functionality, um, and they can do just as well as you and I, just with different things. I mean, think about being or being challenged with making a friend or maintaining a relationship. I mean, one of the basic forms of communication, or one of the basic things we are taught that is intrinsic to communication is eye contact. And then here we're talking about persons who have a difficulty in maintaining eye contact. So they may look and they might look away and they might look up and so on. And we might think, well, why that person behaving so weird? Rather than understanding that this person isn't weird. It is just that the way they are made, the way they are created, a bit different to the way you and I are. And so we have Kashmeera back with us. And so let me ask, at what age? So is a two-part question. What led you to advocating and at what age? So we wanna look at the age, and then we wanna look at what led you into activism, because I understand autism. I understand that people are different, but then we don't necessarily have to advocate. Generally in Trinidad and Tobago, we look at things and we don't really get into advocating for and on behalf of. We just kind of leave it and we kind of slight it and we talk about it in our own safe space. However, we never really move on and really begin to discuss the issue so that we can really help others. So that's the questions that I'm posing to you tonight.
Well, I'm a person, I love helping other people. And when we were in secondary school, and Shahira told me how she was bullied every day and she ended up dropping out of school and not being able to write her CXC exams and stuff, it really, it took a toll on me. And I tried my best to help her. And um, after that, I tried to, you know, talk to people and kind of explain to them what it is, what is autism, and the reason why she is the way she is. But I told her she, like posting on Facebook. So I told her, create a page, try to get people to, you could post educational stuff about autism. And she did that, and people reported the page. They were harassing her, they were bullying her. Like the number of times I heard people call her retarded. And yeah, like, and those things, it really got to me. So I realized that she needed somebody to advocate for her. And I decided to be that person because she don't really have anybody else in her life. And that's why I created the group. So that's
All
why
right.
I became.
So yeah, let me not cut you. Let's just welcome Shahira. She
Not that I'm late, I was
no,
just
no, you're
lost.
not late.
Trouble, yeah.
I just I just lost out of the stream completely. I don't know how it happened.
Okay. All right. Sure. So no problem.
Right. Well, as a child, I could, when outsiders spoke to me, I never used to answer, right? And sometimes, like, even when school officials speak to me, I never answered. But people just dismiss that as me being extremely shy. I also could not understand figurative language. And I don't know if she maybe told you already, but I was in the same class like Kashmeera until standard 3, where I was placed into a different class and I never settled. And the students over there realized that I had a weakness and they started harassing me. So from there, it started. However, symptoms began presented itself more as I reached in high school. Things took a turn for the worse, right? I was harassed and verbally bullied so much that I got extremely fed up, and from 3, I stopped school because I was extremely afraid to attend due to all what I was. People was like, why I am afraid to go to school. No one cannot understand. You know, I you see what children is because they know when somebody have a weakness, they tend to aggravate it. It's to aggravate me. And when I get meltdowns and I used to start to cry and quarrel and that kind of thing, I used to like sit on the floor and they would say things like I am crazy and all kind of thing and retarded and ugly, all sorts of things, and I was like, I just could not focus. I was like, and when I tell like teachers about it, they used to tell me to just ignore them. I mean, it was a very difficult for me to do. And I dropped out of school. Eventually, I became like bored hope. Came back to school, nothing changed. I remember being told like to get out of the class a few times, and I took it like literally. And I came out and I sat on the floor and started to cry and all of that. And I used to get like sometimes when I used to get meltdowns like in the mall, people would watch me and say things as how like I'm spoiled and need some good licks and I was not trained well and those kinds of things. And to top it off, the teachers stated that they were not trained to deal with students with special needs. So they never really understand me per se. Anything more should I say? Well, okay, let's say more. Well, some of these symptoms of autism I presented that I was suspected of being autistic, right? Um, well, I had difficulty making friends, and I was told that I have above average intelligence and lack of contact, trouble controlling emotions, and taking jokes and sarcasm literally. And I used to like rock, lip smack, flap my hands, and stimming. Stimming is like to release tension. I took long before I actually got a diagnosis. Eventually, at kind of late age, which is 16, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome on the autism spectrum. And should I say what Asperger's syndrome is now?
Yeah, Shahira. So I was going to ask you to kind of give us a little bit of understanding of the spectrum, as well as speak to Asperger syndrome.
Well, I'll say what is autism first. Well, autism is a developmental disorder of the brain characterized by significant difficulty with social interaction and communication, as well as restrictive and repetitive behavior. No, and it is a lifelong developmental disability. And let me see, Asperger's syndrome is a developmental disorder on the autism spectrum. From 2013 onwards, Asperger's is no longer a diagnosis on its own. It has become part of a broader category called autism spectrum disorder. This condition is what doctors refer to as high functioning autism. The symptoms are less severe than classic autism, and now autism people have speech impediments. Asperger's syndrome people do not have impediments. They have normal language development. And there are three functional levels of autism. Autism spectrum disorder level 1, that is requiring support. And in this level 1, there is difficulty initiating social interactions, organization, and planning problems can hamper independence. The autism spectrum disorder level 2, requiring substantial support, social interactions limited to narrow special interests, frequent, restrictive, or repetitive behaviors. And autism spectrum disorder level 3, requiring very substantial support. That is where severe deficits in verbal and non-verbal social communication skills, great distress, or difficulty changing actions or focus.
Yeah. So as you share your story, we are understanding a bit more of autism and having experienced the difficulties that you would have. Could you share with the audience or to the viewing audience why you chose to advocate? I mean, if we look at it, we could say that you had many barriers, yeah. And so, why would you have chosen to advocate for autists, for persons with autism, rather than saying, "You see me, I suffer so much, I'm not going to do anymore."
Well, I choose to advocate because I'm often misunderstood, and I believe brings more awareness by helping people to understand autism better, and this by education can lead to acceptance and education of the population.
I think that is it is noteworthy. Um, and the reason why I would say that is because generally, as a population, we rather just sit down. Yeah, we rather see persons going through challenges, and we rather do nothing about it. And so it is important that persons choose to advocate, just generally. I know that we would have asked Kashmeera why she would have chosen to advocate as well. And so, Kashmeera, from your point of view, um, what needs to change in society in terms of how we see and how we deal and how we treat with autistic people or persons with autism?
You mean besides raising awareness?
Yeah, beside, well, we can talk about awareness because I mean this is part of raising awareness, but separate and apart from raising awareness.
I think that changes could be made on different levels. For example, on an educational level, I think that schools should provide, trained staff who are specialized in autism and dealing with autistic people. And I think that there should be like a special structured syllabus because how autistic people's brain are structured differently, they can't learn the same way a regular kid would learn. So they require a special syllabus in order for them to, you know, be educated. I also think that they should form like family support programs where parents who have autistic children could come together and share their experiences and approaches for, supporting autistic children.
Mhm. Shahira, um, I mean, having heard your assessment, I mean, yes, you would have spoken before, but it's the first time I would have heard so much of your story. Um, how do you feel deprived or restricted in any way? And you could probably share with the audience how you feel. Yeah. Are you deprived? Do you feel restricted? Do you feel that normal people place limitations on you because you are autistic?
Yes, numerous times I feel like this due to the fact that society is not autism friendly. You see, autistics like myself on the whole, and by extension, persons with disabilities deserves the right to equal opportunities just like um, not every disability is in a wheelchair. And many times people spoke to me and expected and like the average person. You see, it is difficult for us autistics be able to rationalize and filter out thoughts the way the average person would. At times we misinterpret certain things that are told to us.
I can only
Yeah.
try to understand um, the challenges that you're explaining. Um, when we look at general thought processing, I mean, persons would believe that we could all string one thought to another and to another and to another, or we could move from through a thought process. And so, but what you are explaining to me is that autistics aren't able to do that the way we believe that everyone could.
True, true.
and so I could begin to understand the challenge
Mm-hmm.
that you would face, you know.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and I must admit that I've gotten myself in trouble numerous times because of not what I see, but the way how it was, the way it was said.
Right.
You know, the difficulty to rationalize and figure out thoughts.
Um, I know that. Well, you weren't in yet, but Kashmira spoke about the different difficulty in socializing. Could you share a little bit of your experience with socializing with us, Shahira?
Like presently,
Yeah.
well, I presently have absolutely no difficulty in with you all. It's because we interacted with online and on the phone and all of that. So
Right.
custom.
Right. So may I ask,
But
have
before I ask you to say this,
sure,
like
go ahead.
when I was going to secondary school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like me, I could not make friends. You know, making and maintaining friends is a huge challenge for us.
Right. What I wanted to ask a short while ago was, has it improved over time? Your ability to socialize, and I mean, from what you are saying, I would suspect that it would have. From school to now, that there would be some improvement.
Yes, it has, but not to the full extent.
Yeah. So tonight, we have this little collaboration going on between Prosevine and Autistically Blessed. Kashmira, tell our viewers what they can look forward to from Autistically Blessed, as well as how they could get involved.
Well, my aim for the group is to basically get autistic people and parents of who have autistic children to kind of share their stories with each other so that we could teach people and make them understand what autism is so that hopefully parents could teach their kids, even if their kids aren't autistic, so that when they go to school, people like Shahira wouldn't have to be bullied or harassed or have those kind of experiences. And I also wanted to do some meet and greets in person. I wanted to do that since last year, but because of the whole COVID thing, we weren't able to do any events. So hopefully this year. And if they want to get involved, they could join the Facebook group. We also have an Instagram page. And they could just, when we have events, they could participate. And they could also share the information that we provide on the group and, kind of become an advocate themselves.
Mhm. I, well, I'm not sure who would want to take up the question. Um, when we talk about autism and people who are autistic, um, we generally look at persons as being wanting to contribute to society and being wanting to contribute. We want to grow. I mean, from a child, you want to grow up, you want to be able to find a job and get married and so on. And so my question really has to do with, what is the outlook in terms of the world of work for an autistic person? Shahira.
Well, I personally think that in this country, employers need to become more aware of autism and start accepting autistics and especially people with disabilities into the workplace. Because if you look at it, there are autistics who work in autistics who to detail and have like strict adherence to routine and also superior memory, and they are very meticulous and observant. So like if doing a job to do it the best can. They will try their very best.
Yeah. And so as I shared with you guys when we were chatting previously, um, I actually looked at a documentary, and I was looking at in terms of autistic persons who were employed, and while their work might be different, when they work or where they were working, they were really good at what they were doing. And so I think that it would be um, important. I was thinking about the Ministry of Labor as I was asking the question, and finding out. I mean, I think it might be something a little bit of work for you on your end, Kashmeera, to find out what does the Ministry of Labor have to say about autistics and people who are um, people with autism in the workplace. I mean, and if there is no policy, then that is definitely an area that we could partner and do some
Yes.
work in, because I mean, we want all our citizens to be able to contribute. We want all our citizens in Trinidad and Tobago to be able to participate on as much as possible on the same level as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just thinking about it, I think that it is something that we could probably look at and
I
see
love it.
where they are, what they have done. Um, because I know the Ministry of Labor does do a lot of work in terms of different people in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Junior, yeah, I just wanted to find out if you wanted to get in on the discussion. However, I see someone posted a question, Shahira. They were asking, what would you say are your strengths?
My strengths in terms of what?
Have you seen that working in your favor? I think that as an autistic person, what are your strengths?
You mean like the ability wise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wise. Well, well, let me see. I read really well. I can also write, like Shahira can also write too, and linguistically inclined. I don't want to boast too much,
You
and
should.
like anything to do with the media, you know,
Okay.
and
Very,
like
very
like
intelligent.
to, and I like to take out photos, make videos and stuff. Those are some
Okay.
of these things that I like to do.
Okay.
People
Kashmir, I think you could add.
Yeah, she's very, very intelligent. As are a lot of high functioning autistic people. Like she's very driven. She always doing some kind of course to expand her knowledge. So
Yeah.
that's something that I admire about her. And she's also a really good friend.
I think that's excellent.
Yeah.
can I say something?
Sure. Sure.
You know, I will say this very blunt. You know, there are many hidden autistics in this country, meaning that many people are autistic, but they are forgotten about, and you see, they don't speak like me is either because they are afraid or they feel in shame or something like
I mean, just exploring this conversation. Um, I think that it is amazing that we underestimate autistics.
this
Yeah.
because I am
Go ahead. Go
often
ahead.
underestimated.
Yeah, because I mean, when we look at, I mean, just from this conversation with you, I mean, this is just a conversation, and you are saying that you are able to do all these things, even though you are autistic. Some of the things you call, I definitely not going to do. But apart from that, um, because we, well, let's say normal people, quote unquote, yeah, um, limit or box you in, you are not able to function to your fullest potential. And it's not because you can't, but it's because other human beings are placing limits on you. And so it is, to me, I feel like it was an indictment against us, you know, that we are unfair to our fellow man in that sense. And so it really behooves us to really create spaces, create the avenues, and to create, um, I don't want to say the space, but to create the opportunities. That's the better, that's the word I would like to use for persons who are autistic to be able to really function to their fullest potential. I think that's one of the things that we lack, opportunities.
True.
Kashmira, is there anything you'd like to share?
You hear me?
Yeah, so yeah.
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
I was asking if there's anything additional that you would like to share.
I don't think I have anything, but I think Shahira wanted to touch on the meltdown.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
To get
Please forgive
more
me.
it's a good
in-depth explanation.
remember that one thing could live stream for some reason or the other, because that probably happened, reason being to give Kashmira a chance to talk. I think that right. And so what is a meltdown? Right.
Yeah.
So a meltdown is a temporary loss of control of a person's behavior due to environmental factors. You know, like when somebody become so overwhelmed with anxiety and or with thoughts or whatever that their brain cannot take in any more information. And when you get a meltdown, meltdown can present itself by the person quarreling, crying, yelling. In some instances, some people might even like hurt themselves and felt things. It varies from person to person, but I am more of the type who vent, you know, not the
Yeah.
violent type. And when someone gets a meltdown, they don't really have to see who's watching them. Like when I sit down, I used to often be told I just listen for unnecessary, right? Meltdown. Not that. That is just that part of the brain that, you know, becomes overwhelmed and causes it to get a meltdown. You see, autistics have difficulty interacting socially because the part of the brain responsible for socialization does not function like a normal brain, the way a normal brain does. The brain does affect emotions and the way autistics interpret and see things. Like take for instance, like in a school situation, a child may be like extremely brilliant and perform well in their studies, but not for the life of them they may cannot make friends. Children who are autistic at school, and autistics have certain triggers that make them angry and make them experience meltdowns. But apart from that, they are very sensitive, loving, and honest. Different children may have different autistic traits depending on, well, different degrees of autistic traits depending on where they fall on the spectrum.
In addition to the meltdown, sometimes they get seizures as well, not so?
Some of them does.
Just a little bit of curiosity. Could you speak to the difference in a meltdown and a seizure, just for persons who listening who may not be clear?
Well, I cannot explain what a seizure is, although I know. Because
Okay.
witnessed it already. I know. But I cannot explain that.
Fair enough. All right. So we wanna kind of wrap up. We wanna bring this evening's conversation to a close, and so I wanna ask everyone present to probably give some closing words, things that you may want to leave with the audience as we close. So we would start with Kashmeera.
I just want to thank everybody who has been a part of the Autistically Blessed group, everybody who contributes, who participates, and I love when I get feedback because it kind of makes me feel like what I'm doing is worthwhile and it makes me motivated to keep doing it. So I just want to say thanks, and thanks to you guys for having us and for giving us the opportunity to raise awareness and educate people on autism.
Sure. Shahira.
Well, let me say, first of all, I want to thank you and Junior for asking me to be in this interview, right? And it's also great that Kashmeera had to come too. And I thank everyone for viewing, and also those who will view when this live stream is posted. Great to be in your family, and shout out to everyone who watched. And I hope I did essential tonight. Really hope so. And I must admit that spoke really well.
Thank you.
Being said, I just want to say good night to everyone, and try and encourage your friends to be more autism for 2021 now, please. It was
All right. So from me, I really was enlightened over the period of preparing for this interview. I would really hope that we would invest some time in really checking out what's going on with the Ministry of Labor.
Yeah, definitely.
And I really, as Shahira said, I would like to echo similar sentiments that we really need to be a little bit more autism friendly. We need to understand the differences, understand the challenges that autistics face, as well as how we can assist them. I mean, in their day-to-day, what things we could do to make their lives a little easier. And so even as ProSivane continues to work and we continue to do the work with children. I mean, I think it is very important that we understand even the role that needs to be played in schools. Um, because I know that time things would have changed definitely, and I know that assessments do take place in schools to understand whether to or to find out where and when, like if children are autistic or have different levels of functionality and so on. Um,
Like,
say again?
can I interject?
Sure.
Yeah. Something just came to my mind. I must admit that I think that teachers need to be trained to deal with special needs students in schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that if we were to take from this conversation, we would say, well, we have some work to do. Yeah. But again, ladies, thank you all very much for being live with us. Thank you very much for joining for joining our live and for really sharing and raising the awareness in terms of autism and what autistics face. We really do appreciate having you, and we are grateful that you have taken from your time to share with us this evening. So as we bring this evening's conversation to a close, I am not sure if Junior's connection is good enough for him to say a few closing words. If not, we say pleasant night to each and everyone.